She thought bringing her son to a blind date would ruin everything, but fate had a different plan that night. The city lights shimmered on the wet pavement as Elena Brooks stood outside Valenti's, one of the most elegant restaurants downtown. Her hands trembled slightly as she adjusted her coat and reached down for the tiny hand of her son Noah. The little boy, barely 4, wore his favorite Spider-Man hoodie, the one he refused to take off even for bedtime. His soft curls glistened under the golden streetlight, and his small fingers clung tightly to hers. Elena glanced at the restaurant's tall glass doors, her heart pounding. Inside, people in suits and evening gowns laughed over wine glasses. Outside, she stood in worn jeans and a nervous smile, clutching the hand of her entire world. An hour ago, everything had fallen apart. Her babysitter, her only babysitter, had texted, "Sorry, stomach bug, can't make it." Just 5 words, but they'd knocked the air out of her. This was supposed to be her first real date in 2 years. For weeks, she'd been messaging Mason Reid, a man whose dating profile had almost intimidated her. 41. CEO, kind eyes, clean suit, and the kind of patience that made her laugh. He'd asked to take her out for dinner. Just good conversation, he'd said. But now, she was standing here about to text him something she'd been dreading to say all day. "I'm so sorry, Mason. My babysitter canceled last minute. I'll have to reschedule. I really am sorry." Her thumb hovered over send, her chest tightened. This date was her one small chance to feel like herself again, not just Noah's mom, but Elena. Still, what choice did she have? She hit send. Seconds later, her phone rang. "Hello," she answered, her voice nervous. "Elena." The voice was deep, calm, familiar from their calls. "It's Mason. I just got your message. Where are you right now?" She glanced around. I'm outside Valenti's, but I really need to head home. My sitter canceled, and I couldn't find anyone else to watch Noah." "Are you with him now?" Mason asked. His tone wasn't sharp, but gentle.
"Yes."
"He's right here." There was a pause, one she expected to turn awkward. But instead, Mason's reply was calm, almost warm. "Then bring him in." Elena blinked. "What?" "Bring Noah inside. We'll have dinner together. All 3 of us." She laughed nervously. "Mason, I can't do that. This is supposed to be a date, not a family dinner with a stranger." "Then let's call it something else," Mason said softly. "A friendly dinner. You told me about Noah so many times I feel like I already know him, and trust me, Valenti's won't mind another guest. I'll take care of it." Elena hesitated. She looked down at Noah, who was crouched on the sidewalk, examining a pebble as if it were treasure. Her heart ached at how small he looked. How much of her life revolved around this little boy? Still, she couldn't remember the last time someone spoke to her without judgment. "Are you sure?" she whispered. "I'm sure," Mason said. "Unless you'd rather not." "I completely understand if this makes you uncomfortable." Elena exhaled. "No, it's okay. We'll come in. But I'm warning you, he's 4, and not exactly fine dining material." Mason chuckled. "Neither was I at 4. Come on in, Elena. I'll ask them to set another place." Inside Valenti's, the warm lighting spilled across cream tablecloths and soft music hummed through the air. Elena instantly felt underdressed, out of place among the polished people sipping wine. The host's smile faltered slightly when he noticed the child beside her, but before he could speak, a tall man rose from a corner table and waved. Mason Reid looked nothing like she'd imagined. Not the cold, polished CEO she'd pictured, but human, approachable. His dark hair was neatly styled, and his suit looked expensive, yet his expression held something far more valuable: kindness. When he reached them, he didn't shake Elena's hand first. He crouched to Noah's level. "Hey there," Mason said gently. "You must be Noah." Noah stared up at him with curious eyes. "I'm 4, he announced, "and Spider-Man's the best hero ever." Mason smiled. "You know what makes Spider-Man special?" Noah tilted his head. "His webs?" "No," Mason said seriously. "It's that he never gives up, even when things get hard. That's a real hero." The little boy grinned. "Then I'm Spider-Man too." Elena felt her throat tighten. Mason stood and finally turned to her, extending his hand. "And you must be Elena. It's really good to finally meet you." She shook it, her palm trembling slightly. "I'm so sorry about this. I know this isn't what you expected." Mason's eyes softened. "Actually, it's exactly what I hoped for." He led them to the table, where a third seat and even a small cup of crayons waited. How did you?" Elena started. He smiled. "I called ahead while you were walking in." For the first time in a long while, Elena felt something she hadn't felt in years: seen. As Noah began coloring, she sat across from Mason, wondering what kind of man could be this effortlessly kind. And yet she couldn't shake the feeling that there was something deeper behind his calm eyes, a quiet sadness he carried, one she didn't yet understand. Elena didn't know it yet, but the man who just welcomed her son without hesitation was carrying a heartbreak of his own. One that would soon change all of their lives forever. He treated her son like family from the moment they met, but behind Mason's kind smile was a secret he'd been hiding for years. The soft clinking of cutlery and murmurs of conversation filled Valentine's, wrapping the evening in a quiet, elegant hum. Elena sat across from Mason Reid, still trying to make sense of what was happening. In the space of 20 minutes, her canceled babysitter had turned into this, an unexpected dinner with a man who not only accepted her son but seemed genuinely happy to meet him. Noah sat between them in his booster seat, tongue peeking out in concentration as he colored the restaurant's children's menu. Every so often, he'd hold up his drawing of a stick figure spider, man for Mason's approval. "That's awesome," Mason said each time, his smile never forced. "You're getting really good at those web lines." Elena watched him quietly. There was no trace of impatience in his expression, no discomfort in his posture. Most men she'd met or tried to date had treated Noah like a distraction, an obstacle to be tolerated. But Mason, he leaned in when Noah spoke, asked questions, laughed at his tiny jokes. "Why are you being so nice about this?" Elena finally asked, unable to stop herself. Her voice was soft, vulnerable. Most men would have run the other way by now. Mason set down his glass and looked at her. "Can I tell you something that's not on my profile?" "Please do," she said, curious. He took a slow breath, his jaw tightening for just a second before he spoke. "I have a daughter. Her name's Lily, she's 7, and I haven't seen her in almost 3 years." The words hit Elena like a gust of wind, gentle but heavy. You have a daughter?" Mason nodded. "Yeah. Her mother and I divorced years ago. She remarried and moved overseas. Australia, actually. Between my work and the custody laws, I lost most of my rights. I get 2 video calls a month, if I'm lucky." His voice cracked slightly at the edges, though he tried to mask it with a small, tight smile. Elena's chest ached. "That must be so hard." "It is," Mason said simply. "Every time I see a parent with their child, I feel it, that space between what is and what should be. So, when you said your babysitter canceled, my first thought wasn't disappointment." He glanced at Noah, who was now humming quietly as he colored. "It was gratitude. Gratitude that I'd get to have dinner with a mother who puts her child first, even when it makes her life harder. That's rare, Elena. You don't realize how rare that is." For a long moment, Elena didn't know what to say. She felt a rush of warmth and shame all at once. Shame for assuming Mason would see Noah as a burden, and warmth because he didn't. She found her voice. "I've been told I have too much baggage. That dating a single mom is complicated." Mason smiled sadly. "Baggage, that's the word people use when they've never carried anything valuable." The air seemed to still for a heartbeat. From the corner of her eye, Elena saw Noah tugging on her sleeve. "Mommy, can I show Mr. Mason my Spider-Man pose?" Mason chuckled. "Absolutely." Noah stood up in his seat and threw his arms forward dramatically, pretending to shoot webs. "Twip, twip." The nearby table turned to look, some amused, some disapproving. Elena's face flushed. "No, sit down, sweet Harwar." But before she could finish, Mason joined in, mimicking the same pose. Twip threw and Noah erupted in laughter. "You're doing it wrong! You have to bend your wrist like this!" The laughter spread. Even a waiter walking by smiled. Elena couldn't help it. She laughed too. For the first time in what felt like years, she wasn't embarrassed by being a single mom. She wasn't apologizing for Noah being loud or messy or real. She was happy. Dinner flowed easily after that. Mason ordered pasta for Noah, cut into small pieces, and a simple salmon dish for Elena. They talked about everything: her work as a graphic designer, his struggles building his company, the loneliness they both carried but rarely admitted. And through it all, Mason kept glancing at Noah, not with pity, but with quiet admiration. When dessert came, a single chocolate mousse Mason had ordered for sharing, Noah's face lit up. Mason handed him the first spoonful. "Are you sure?" Elena asked, smiling. "Absolutely. Heroes eat first." Noah grinned, chocolate already smudging his chin. As Elena dabbed at her son's face with a napkin, she caught Mason watching her with that same calm warmth. "What?" she asked, smiling nervously. He shook his head. "Nothing. Just, I get it now." "Get what?" "What it looks like when someone loves without holding anything back." Her breath caught in her throat. For years, Elena had been moving through life like a ghost, too afraid to hope, too busy surviving. But this man, this stranger she'd just met, saw her in a way no one else had. Maybe too deeply, because behind that gentle smile, she saw it, a flicker of pain. Not from her, but from somewhere deep inside him. The kind that doesn't fade with time. The kind that hides behind perfect manners and polite laughter. Elena thought she was getting to know a kind-hearted man, but Mason's past wasn't as simple as he made it sound. And soon, his hidden pain would come crashing into both their lives. 2 days passed since the dinner at Valenti's, yet Elena couldn't shake the warmth that lingered in her chest. The laughter, the easy conversation, the way Mason had knelt beside Noah to fix his shoelace before they left, it all played on a loop in her mind. She hadn't expected a second date. Life had taught her to expect good things to fade quickly. But Mason called the very next evening. "Elena." His voice had carried that same quiet confidence. "How do you feel about the zoo this weekend?" "I hear superheroes love lions." She had laughed half in disbelief. "You mean Noah would love it?" "I meant both of you." Saturday arrived golden and bright. The city zoo buzzed with life, children running with balloons, parents juggling ice cream cones and camera phones. Noah clung to Elena's hand until he spotted Mason near the gate. "Mr. Mason!" he shouted, bolting toward him. Mason scooped him up effortlessly. "There's my little Spider-Man, you ready to see some wild animals?" Elena watched, unable to suppress her smile. Mason wore jeans and a simple navy shirt, sunglasses perched on his head. He looked nothing like the polished CEO from that night, more like a man who belonged here, laughing among families, not in some corner office. As they strolled through the zoo, Mason bought Noah a stuffed lion, fed giraffes with him, even carried him on his shoulders to see the elephant enclosure. Elena walked beside them quietly, her heart fighting the battle between too soon and too right. At one point, Mason handed her a cup of lemonade. "You okay? You've been quiet." She nodded. "Just enjoying watching you too. It feels surreal." "What does?" "This," she said softly, gesturing at them. At Noah's laughter, at Mason's easy smile. "I haven't seen my son this happy in a long time. And I haven't felt this." She hesitated. "Safe." Something flickered across Mason's face. Tenderness mixed with something darker. "Elena," he said quietly, "there's something I should have told you before we met again." Her heartbeat quickened. "What is it?" But before he could answer, Noah squealed, tugging his hand. "The tiger's awake." Mason smiled faintly. "Later," he murmured. "I promise." Later came sooner than either expected. As they walked out of the zoo, Elena noticed a sleek black car parked by the curb, too polished for this place, too familiar in its quiet authority. A woman stepped out. Tall, elegant, mid-30s, dressed in designer beige. Her expression was sharp enough to cut glass. "Mason," she called, her tone smooth and commanding. Mason's entire body stiffened. Elena looked at him. "Who is?" Before she could finish, the woman reached them. "I've been calling you for 3 days. You changed your number again. I told you not to come here," Mason said, his voice calm but tight. Elena stepped back, holding Noah's hand protectively. The woman's eyes flicked to Elena, then to the child. Her perfectly shaped brows arched. "And who are they?" Elena's throat tightened. "She's a friend," Mason interrupted quickly. The woman smirked. "A friend, right. And the child? That's none of your business, Claire," Mason said, his tone dropping. "Claire." Elena repeated softly, realization dawning. Claire crossed her arms. "I'm Mason's ex-wife. The one he conveniently forgot to mention was in town." The air between them went razor sharp. Noah, oblivious, tugged Elena's hand. "Mommy, can we go see the monkeys again?" Elena forced a smile. "Not now, sweetheart." Claire's gaze lingered on Noah, then turned to Mason with icy amusement. "You never change, do you? Trying to play house with every lost soul you meet. You think being nice fixes what you broke." Mason's jaw tightened. "That's enough." But Claire wasn't done. "Does she even know why you really can't see Lily? Or what your therapist called it?" "Stop it." His voice was low now, dangerous. Elena felt her stomach knot. "Mason, what is she talking about?" He opened his mouth, but no sound came. Claire smiled, victorious. "You should ask him, Elena. Ask him what happened the night Lily went missing." Elena froze. "Missing. It was an accident," Mason said quickly, his eyes desperate now. "She was found an hour later. She was safe. But Claire called the police." Claire finished coldly. "And the court decided he wasn't stable enough to have unsupervised custody." Noah looked up, confused. "Mummy, what's happening?" Elena knelt beside him, trying to steady her shaking hands. "It's okay, baby." Mason's voice broke through, heavy with pleading. "Elena, please don't listen to her like this. I never hurt my daughter. I froze that night. I was overworked, exhausted, and I made one terrible mistake. I've been paying for it ever since." For a moment, everything blurred. The noise of traffic, the shouts of children, the sting of wind against her skin. Elena stared at him, her heart cracking open between sympathy and fear. "You should have told me," she whispered. "You should have trusted me enough to tell me." "I wanted to." Mason said, voice trembling. I just didn't want you to look at me like that. The silence that followed was heavier than any words could carry. Claire gave a satisfied smirk. You always find a way to ruin something good, Mason. Some people never change. She turned and walked away, her heels clicking sharply against the pavement. Mason stood there, pale, helpless, the image of a man torn apart by his own history. Elena took Noah's hand. I need some time, she said quietly. I'm sorry. And then she walked away, not looking back, though every step hurt like glass under her feet. Elena wanted to believe Mason's pain was real, but how do you trust a man with a past like that? And yet fate wasn't done with them, because soon she'd need him more than ever. The rain came suddenly that night, heavy, cold, relentless. Elena stood by the window of her small apartment, watching it blur the city lights into trembling halos. It had been 4 days since the confrontation at the zoo, 4 days since Mason's truth shattered the fragile peace she had begun to feel. She hadn't answered his calls or texts. Each message sat unread, glowing quietly on her phone's screen like a wound she couldn't touch. Please let me explain. I never meant for you to find out that way. Elena, I miss both of you. Her heart tightened at that last one. Both of you. Noah was asleep in his small bed, his stuffed lion clutched to his chest. The innocence on his face made her ache with guilt. He had adored Mason. Every morning since that day he'd asked, when can we see Mr. Mason again? And each time, she'd find a new excuse. He's busy. Maybe next week. We'll call him soon. But deep down, she didn't know what she believed anymore. Mason had been honest eventually, but could she trust a man whose past was built on something so fragile? A sudden knock at the door made her flinch. It was past 10 p.m. She hesitated, then called out softly, Who is it? A familiar voice answered, trembling slightly through the door. Elena, it's me. Her pulse jumped. Mason? Yes. Please, I know it's late, but I need to talk to you. Just 5 minutes. She almost didn't open it. But something in his voice, not smooth, not confident, just broken, made her undo the latch. Mason stood there soaked to the bone, rain dripping from his hair, his shirt clinging to him. His eyes were red-rimmed, and he looked different, smaller somehow. Elena, he began, voice hoarse, I didn't come to beg for forgiveness. I came because I need to be honest, really honest this time. She crossed her arms, heart hammering. Go ahead. He swallowed hard. That night Claire mentioned when Lily went missing, it wasn't neglect, not really. It was a panic attack. The first real one I'd ever had. Elena blinked. A panic attack, he nodded. I had been running on 3 hours of sleep for days. My company was collapsing, my marriage already in pieces. Lily wanted to go outside and play. I told her to stay near the garden. I went inside to take a call. And then, his voice cracked. I lost track of time. When I came back, she was gone. He wiped his face, whether from rain or tears, she couldn't tell. Watt found her an hour later, down the block safe. But Claire called the police anyway, said I'd abandoned her, and maybe she was right. I froze when I realized she was missing. I couldn't even move. Just paralyzed, Elena's chest tightened. She could see it, the guilt, the shame, the endless self-punishment behind his eyes. I never forgave myself, Mason whispered. Not for losing her, not for losing my family. So when I met you and Noah, it felt like I'd been given a second chance to protect someone again, and I ruined that too. Silence stretched between them, broken only by the rain tapping the window. Mason, she said finally, her voice softening. You should have told me. I wouldn't have judged you. I was afraid you'd see me as a failure, he said. The truth is, I've spent years being afraid. Afraid of being alone, afraid of loving anyone again. But when I saw you with Noah, I wasn't afraid anymore. Oh, Elena's eyes filled. That's not fair, she whispered. You can't just walk into our lives, make us feel safe, and then disappear behind secrets. He stepped closer. Then don't let me disappear. Please. Before she could reply, a sound shattered the moment. A faint cry from Noah's room. Mama. Elena turned immediately. He must have had a nightmare. She hurried in, Mason following quietly. Noah sat up, sweating and trembling. Mommy, I dreamed you were gone, he said, voice shaking. Elena hugged him tightly. I'm right here, sweetheart. You're safe. Mason crouched beside the bed, his voice gentle. Hey, buddy, you're okay. Just a dream. Noah blinked at him, then smiled sleepily. Mr. Mason. Yeah, Mason whispered. It's me. Without hesitation, Noah reached out his small hand. Don't go again. The simple plea hit both adults like lightning. Mason froze and then carefully, reverently took the boy's hand. I won't, he said softly. I promise. Elena's eyes met his. In that moment, all her anger, fear, and confusion tangled into something she couldn't name. Maybe forgiveness wasn't a choice. Maybe it was just the quiet moment when your heart stopped fighting. Later, after Noah drifted back to sleep, Mason stood to leave. "Thank you," he murmured, "for letting me see you both again." Elena walked him to the door. "I don't know what this means yet," she admitted, "but I know you care about him, about us, and that matters." And he nodded, his smile tired but real. "If you ever need me, for anything, I'll be there." And as if the universe had been waiting for those words, the night exploded with a distant crash, thunder rolling, a power line sparking across the street. The lights flickered and died, plunging the apartment into darkness. Elena gasped, clutching the wall. Mason grabbed his phone, the flashlight cutting through the dark. "Stay here," he said quickly. "I'll check outside." But before he could reach the door, another sound came, the piercing wail of sirens growing closer, urgent. Elena's heart pounded. "Mason, what's happening?" He turned back to her, his face pale in the glow. "I think that's near the park, the same street where—" But he didn't finish. His phone buzzed violently in his hand. He looked down, froze, and whispered, "No, not now." Elena's voice trembled. "Who is it?" Mason's lips parted, his eyes wide with dread. "It's Claire. She says Lily's missing again." The man who had just promised never to disappear was suddenly pulled back into the nightmare that once destroyed him. And this time, Elena wouldn't let him face it alone. The rain hadn't stopped. Thunder rolled low over the city as Mason stood frozen, Claire's trembling voice echoing from his phone speaker. "Mason! She's gone!" I turned around for 1 second, and she just vanished. He could barely breathe. His hands shook as he pressed the phone tighter against his ear. "Claire, listen to me. Where are you?" "I told you. The park near her piano class. I already called the police. Just get here." The line went dead. For a moment, Mason didn't move. His mind spun back to that night years ago. The garden, the silence, the gut-wrenching terror when he realized his little girl was gone. He could hear his heartbeat in his ears. The world started tilting. Then Elena's voice broke through, firm but calm. "Mason, look at me." He blinked, breathing uneven. She took a step closer. "You're not alone this time. We're gonna find her, okay? You, me, and Noah. Together." Her tone, steady, grounding, snapped him out of his panic. He nodded, almost dazed. "Right?" He muttered. "Right, I'll drive." Minutes later, they were speeding through sheets of rain, windshield wipers slashing back and forth. Noah sat in the back, clutching his stuffed lion, eyes wide but quiet. Elena glanced at Mason from the passenger seat. His knuckles were white on the steering wheel. "How old is she now?" she asked gently. 7, he said, voice raw. "Same age she was then. She loves music, hates carrots, thinks I can't dance." He stopped, swallowing hard. "I can't lose her again, Elena. Not again." "You won't," she said. "We'll find her." The car screeched to a stop near the park. Police lights flashed blue and red across wet pavement. Mason jumped out before the car even stopped moving. "Lily!" he shouted, running toward the playground. "Lily!" Elena followed, grabbing Noah's hand. Officers moved around with flashlights, searching the bushes and nearby trail. Claire stood under a street lamp, soaked and trembling. The moment she saw Mason, she burst into tears. I only looked away to grab her bag, Mason!" She said she wanted to see the ducks, and when I turned, she was gone. He caught her shoulders gently. "It's okay. We'll find her." But inside, he was unraveling. Every sound, the sirens, the rain, the whispers, was twisting his memories tighter and tighter. And then a familiar small voice cut through the chaos. "Daddy." Mason froze. Elena turned, spotting a tiny figure under the gazebo near the pond, drenched, shivering, clutching a little pink backpack. "Lily!" Mason shouted, sprinting across the wet grass. The girl looked up, eyes wide and tearful. "Daddy!" He dropped to his knees and pulled her into his arms, sobbing into her soaked hair. "Oh God, Lily, it's okay. I've got you. You're safe." Claire ran to them, collapsing beside him. "Thank God," she cried, wrapping her arms around them both. The officers slowly began to pull back, murmuring updates into their radios. Elena stood at a distance with Noah watching. Her own chest ached as she saw Mason clutch his daughter like a man afraid the world might take her again. Noah tugged her sleeve softly. "Mummy, is she okay now?" Elena smiled faintly. "Yes, sweetheart, she's safe." When Mason finally looked up, his eyes found hers through the rain, no words, just a look of raw gratitude, the kind that said, "You kept me standing." Hours later, after the police took statements and confirmed Lily had wandered toward the pond on her own, the chaos quieted. Mason sat in the back of his car, Lily wrapped in a blanket, fast asleep. Claire stood nearby, calmer now. "She's fine," Claire said softly. "The doctors say she just needs rest. Thank you for coming." Elena nodded. "Of course." Claire hesitated, looking at Mason. For what it's worth, I was wrong, Mason. You didn't freeze this time. He didn't respond, just stroked Lily's hair. When Claire left with the police escort, Mason finally turned to Elena. His voice was barely above a whisper. You stayed. Of course I did, she said simply. He met her gaze. You didn't have to. Yes, I did. She smiled faintly. Because I think that's what love does. It shows up, especially when it's hardest. For a long time, neither of them spoke. The storm had stopped, leaving only the sound of dripping water and distant thunder. Noah had fallen asleep in the back seat, his head resting on his stuffed lion. Mason looked at him, then at Elena. You're something else, you know that. She chuckled softly. You say that like it's a bad thing. He shook his head, smiling for the first time that night. No, it's the best thing I've ever seen. When they finally pulled up to her apartment, the first hints of dawn touched the sky. As Elena unbuckled Noah's seatbelt, Mason spoke quietly. Elena, tonight you reminded me who I want to be. The man I was supposed to be for Lily. And maybe, if you let me for both of you. She paused, looking at him. There it was. The truth behind all the chaos, stripped of pretense or fear. I don't know where this is going, she admitted. But maybe we can find out together. He nodded, relief softening his tired eyes. I'd like that, she smiled, touching his arm gently. Then start by getting some sleep. Hero. Mason laughed quietly, the first real laugh she'd heard since that first dinner at Valenti's. As he drove away, Elena watched the taillights fade, a strange warmth filling the cold dawn air. Maybe love wasn't about avoiding the broken pieces. Maybe it was about finding someone willing to help you carry them. The storm had passed, but something new was beginning. What started as a blind date was slowly becoming a family, though fate still had one final test waiting for them. A year had passed since that night in the rain. The city felt different now, brighter, warmer, quieter. Mason stood in the middle of a cozy backyard filled with laughter, sunlight, and the smell of grilled food. Paper lanterns swayed above, and children's laughter echoed from the garden. It wasn't a boardroom or a restaurant this time. It was home. Their home. Elena was kneeling near the picnic table, helping Noah tie a red ribbon around a gift box. Her hair glowed golden in the late afternoon light, a strand falling across her cheek. Mummy, is it ready? Noah asked eagerly. Almost, she smiled, tightening the bow. But remember, it's a surprise. Noah nodded solemnly, holding the box like a sacred treasure. His Spider-Man shirt had long since been outgrown, replaced with a tiny white shirt and suspenders, but the same spark in his eyes remained. Across the yard, Lily was teaching him how to blow bubbles. Her giggles filled the air, light, unburdened. And for Mason, watching them felt like witnessing a miracle he didn't deserve but had somehow been given anyway. When he'd met Elena, he hadn't expected a second chance, not at fatherhood, not at love, not at peace. But she'd given him all three, one day at a time. He remembered that first night at Valenti's, her nervous smile, Noah's small hand clutching hers, his own decision that changed everything. Bring him in. That single moment had rippled through every part of his life, turning what could have been an awkward evening into the foundation of something real. Now, as the evening sun dipped lower, Mason took a deep breath and called out, "Hey everyone, come here for a second." Elena turned a curious smile on her lips. Noah and Lily ran over, hands sticky with bubble soap. "What's going on?" Elena asked, brushing her hair from her face. Mason's heart pounded. He'd faced investors, courts, and board meetings, but nothing had ever made him this nervous. He knelt down, took Elena's hand, and looked up at her. "Elena Brooks," he began softly, "a year ago, you walked into a restaurant holding your son's hand and apologized for something that turned out to be the best thing that ever happened to me." She laughed, eyes already glistening. "Mason, you brought light back into my life," he continued. "You taught me that family isn't about blood. It's about love, patience, and showing up. You showed me what it means to be needed and what it means to heal." Lily tugged at Noah's sleeve, whispering, "Is it happening?" Noah grinned. "Yeah, it's happening." Mason smiled at the two of them, then back at Elena. "You once told me that love shows up when it's hardest. You did, every time. And now I can't imagine a single day without you, or without them." He opened the small box he'd been holding. Inside was a delicate silver ring, simple, timeless, and shining in the golden light. "Elena," he said, his voice breaking just slightly, "will you marry me?" The world seemed to go still. Even the wind paused. Elena covered her mouth, tears falling freely. She looked at Lily and Noah, their faces glowing with hope, then back at Mason, the man who had turned every broken piece of her life into something beautiful. "Yes," she whispered. Then louder, laughing through tears, "Yes, Mason Reid, I'll marry you." The yard erupted in cheers. Noah jumped, shouting, "He did it!" while Lily ran to hug them both. Mason wrapped his arms around Elena as the children joined, forming a tight, messy, perfect embrace. For a moment there were no titles, no fears, no pasts, only love, simple and complete. Later that night, after everyone had gone home and the lanterns still glowed faintly in the breeze, Elena and Mason sat together on the porch swing. Noah and Lily were asleep inside, Noah with his lion plush, Lily with her music box. Mason leaned back, fingers intertwined with hers. "You know," he said quietly, "I used to think love meant perfection, that everything had to be stable, calm, predictable," and now she asked softly. He smiled. "No, I know love means chaos. Messy mornings, missed calls, little shoes in the hallway, and hearts big enough to fit everyone who needs them." Elena rested her head on his shoulder. "Sounds like family to me." "It does," he whispered. "It finally does." They sat in silence, watching fireflies blink in the darkness. The night hummed with quiet contentment. Inside, the two children, the ones who had unknowingly brought them together, slept peacefully, the way only children do when they know they're safe and loved. And outside, under the stars, two souls who had once been broken promised to never walk alone again. Years later, when people asked how they met, Elena would always laugh and say, "It started with a canceled babysitter and a question no one expected." And Mason would add, smiling at her across the table, "She asked if bringing her son was okay, and that question gave me back my daughter, my heart, and my life." Then Noah, now older, would groan, "Mom, Dad, not this story again." And Lily would roll her eyes but secretly smile, because deep down, she knew she'd never get tired of hearing it. Because some stories aren't just about love, they're about redemption, about courage, about saying yes to the things that scare you most, and discovering that sometimes those are the very things that save you. Because the right person won't ask you to hide your heart, they'll ask you to share it. And when you do, you'll find that love doesn't just